In Lesson 6.1, you will identify special angle pairs and relationships and use that information to help you find missing measurements. Below you'll see a list of some special pairs of angles, the first one being vertical angles. Vertical angles are opposite angles formed by intersecting lines. I like to sometimes call these the bow tie angles, because look over here. These two angles right here, angle 1 and angle 2, that make a little bow tie, those are called vertical angles. So angles 1 and 2 are vertical. 1 and 2 are vertical, and 3 and 4 are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent, which means they're the same size. The next vocab word is complementary angles. Complementary angles are where the sum of the measures of the two angles add up to 90 degrees. These two angles right here are complementary because they add up to 90 degrees. And then supplementary angles are two angles that add up to 180 degrees. The way I remember these two and keep them straight is complementary comes before supplementary in the alphabet, and 90 comes before 180 on a number line. So it kind of matches up. The first one in the alphabet is the first one on the number line, and the second one is the bigger one. In example 1, it says in the figure, the measurement of angle ABC equals 90 degrees. So angle ABC, this angle right here is 90 degrees. We're supposed to find the measurement of angle X. Well, X plus 65 needs to equal 90 degrees. So to solve that, you would subtract 65 from 90. This is how you would do it algebraically. 90 minus 65 is 25. So X is 25. It's 25 degrees. Some people would just take 90 and subtract the one they know from it. So 90 minus 65 to get X. This is how you would write an equation and solve it. Next, find the value of X in this figure. This one is a little bit trickier. If you look at these two, let's see. I think I had to change my mind. My original thought is not correct. Well, let's first figure out what we can figure out in this picture. I think what we want to look at is if we look at this line and this line, we end up forming two angles that are vertical. This one right here and this one right here. These two angles are congruent, or the same size. So since this one is broken up into two different parts, these two added together should total 150. So X plus 95 equals 150. Subtract 95 from both sides. $50 minus 95 ends up being 55. So X has a value of 55. It's 55 degrees. You may want to pause the video and try the next few on your own. All right, in example A here, these two angles are supplementary. Since they're supplementary, or they form this 180-degree angle, these two together total 180. So X plus 38 equals 180 degrees. And then you would subtract 38 from both sides. x is going to equal 142 degrees. For example B, these two angles right here are those bow tie angles that are called vertical angles. And since they are vertical angles, they're congruent. So that one is a very simple 150 because they're the same size. Now for example C, we have to look at this a little closely. If I look at these two intersecting lines, this angle and this angle right here are vertical angles. Vertical angles are congruent or the same size. So these two added together need to equal 110. So x plus 75 equals 110. To solve this, you'd subtract 75 from both sides. X equals 35. All right, next up we have some more vocabulary. Lines that intersect at right angles are called perpendicular lines. Right here is an example of two perpendicular lines. The symbol for perpendicular is right here. Two lines in a plane that never intersect or cross are called parallel lines. And one way to indicate two lines are parallel is to put these little arrows on the line. And this right here is the symbol for parallel. If you have two lines and another line cutting through it, this line cutting through those other lines is called a transversal. When you do that, you have what are called interior angles and exterior angles. These ones on the inside of the two lines are called interior angles because interior is on the inside. And the ones out here, 1, 2, 8, and 7, those four angles are called exterior because they're on the outside of the two lines. Now, if your two lines that the transversal is cutting happens to be parallel lines, something special happens. If these are my parallel lines and here's your transversal cutting through it, these angles on the inside, remember, are called interior angles. Ones that are on opposite sides of the transversal are called alternate interior angles. So for example, angle 4 and 6, those are called alternate interior angles, and 3 and 5, those angles are alternate interior angles as well. What is unique about those is that they are going to be congruent to each other. 3 and 5 are congruent, and 4 and 6 are congruent. We also have what's called alternate exterior angles. So angles 1 and angle 7, they're the exterior angles that are on opposite sides of the transversal. Those are congruent. And angles 2 and 8 are also congruent because they're alternate exterior angles. Corresponding angles are angles that are in the same position. So if you were to look at these four angles here and these four angles here, the ones that are in the same spot, like 1 and 5 are in the same spot because they're the upper left of each group of four angles here. Those are congruent. 3 and 7 are congruent because they are in corresponding positions. This angle right here and this one, congruent. And this one and this one, it's also congruent. That information is going to help you solve some more problems, and if you know one of the angles in a problem like this, you can find the others. In fact, let's go back to this and let me just show you a quick example. Let's say angle number 1 up here. Let's say angle 1 was 50 degrees. If angle 1 is 50 degrees, we could also say this one right here is 50 degrees because they're corresponding angles. I could say this angle is 50 degrees because it's a vertical angle with 1. And if this one's 50, then this one here is also 50 because they are congruent, because they're corresponding. And then the fact that these two form a 180 degree angle, that means they're supplementary or total 180 degrees. This angle plus this one totals 180, so this one would have to be 130 degrees because 50 plus 130 is 180. And if this one's 130, so is this one because they are corresponding or in the same position. 8 would also be 130 degrees because they're vertical angles. And this one here would be 130 degrees because it is vertical angles with number 2 or that it's corresponding with number 8. So as long as you know one of the measurements, you can figure out the other 7. Example 3 says a furniture designer built the bookcase shown. Line A is parallel to line B. So A is parallel to B. Classify the relationship between angles 2 and 4. So we're looking at this angle and this angle. Those two angles are on the inside, so they're interior angles. And because they are on opposite sides of the transversal, they're going to be alternate interior angles. Now, if angle 1 is 95 degrees, we can figure out the measurement of angle 2 and angle 4. Angle 2's measurement, these two angles right here are supplementary, meaning they total 180 degrees. So 95 plus the one we don't know, we'll call it x. 95 plus x equals 180 degrees. So you would subtract 95 from both sides. 180 minus 95. 180 minus 95 is going to be 85. So if angle 2, if the measurement of angle 2 equals 85 degrees, the measurement of angle 4 is also going to be 85 degrees because they are congruent. You may want to pause the video and try the next one on your own. So to use the figure at the right, classify the relationship between angles 6 and 7. 6 and 7. Angles 6 and 7 are what are called corresponding angles. The relationship between 3 and 8, this one and this one, they're on opposite sides and they're on the outside, so those are going to be alternate exterior angles. Now part F says the measurement of angle 1 equals 63 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and write in 63 degrees. Find the measurement of angle 7 and angle 4. So I'm looking for this one and this one. And justify your method. Well, first of all, angle 7, the measurement of angle 7 is going to equal 63 degrees. It's going to equal 63 degrees because these two are opposite or alternate exterior angles, and they're going to be the same size. Now from that information, we can figure out angle 4. Angle 4 and 7 are supplementary, so the measurement of angle 4 is going to equal 180 degrees minus the 63 that we already have here. So that's going to be 117 degrees. Now we're supposed to find if measurement 8 equals 122. So let's start over, and we're going to put 182 or 122 right here. We're supposed to find 6 and 1. Well, 6 and 1 are going to be the same size. Because they're vertical angles. But we need to first figure out what that number's going to be. I would probably start off by figuring out this one. This one right here, these two angles together have to total 180. So if this one's 122 and together it has to be 180, 180 minus 122 is going to be 58. And if 2 is 58, so is 6, because they're alternate interior angles. And number 1 is also going to be 58 because it is a vertical angle to 6.